Welcome back everybody to another in my time-lapse model build videos, and this is part 2 in my build of the F-82G Night Fighter. Now in this video we're going to be taking the aircraft from paint right through to completion, and if you haven't seen part 1 and you do want to see it, down below in the description I'll have a link to it. That's where I take the kit from effectively the box straight up to primer ready for paint. So again, down below, link to that if you want to see it, and without further ado, let's jump into this video. And as always, my name is Sean and this is Sean's Aviation. Okay, now that the airframe is painted, I'm going to go ahead and get it sealed. And part of the reason I want to do that now, I got to gloss coat it for decals, but also the paint is flat and it is grabbing dust and dirt like crazy. And I want to make sure it doesn't pick up any more dirt. So I'm going to get the gloss coat going on this now. I might not get to decal for a while, but it will at least protect the paint from any type of dust on the surface. This is just straight, it's Future Floor Wax, Pledge with Future Floor Shine. I don't even know what it's called. I'm gonna have to buy more soon. So I will have to do some research and figure out what this product is now sold as and try to buy some. I find this is a great kind of pre-decal gloss coat and post-decal gloss coat. If I'm doing like a final gloss, I will usually use like an Alclad gloss. Flat, I'll use whatever. I used to use Model Master. I'm now using Vallejo. But I like this. It's a nice, it brushes on easily. It's easy to work with. I've had this bottle sitting in the closet for 15 or 20 years and it's held up. It hasn't deteriorated at all. It seems when I've done the models with it, there's a couple that I've left in a gloss for many years. It hasn't started to yellow on me at all. Because it's a floor wax, it tends to be UV stable and won't yellow with age like other products may. And it settles nicely, right? It flattens out, it settles to a relatively thin coat, and I like it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get this done. I'm gonna be doing it in stages. It does take a little bit to dry, so I'll be doing it in stages so I don't get fingerprints or anything in it. You know, wings first, let it sit, dry, and then I'll do the fuselages and then everything else. The one thing you do have to be aware of, if you future something, you let it dry and you go back and go over it a second time, you'll get white fogging. That will disappear when it redries. It tends to like activate and soften the underlayer and will turn foggy. That will disappear and settle out when it starts to finally dry. So anyways, there's the wings. I'll continue on after that's dry, get this whole thing gloss coated, and then eventually get around to getting this thing decaled. So here we are with the F-82, and I'm at kind of like another one of those kit milestones that you end up hitting. I always find it, you get to this point and it takes a little bit of a mental leap to go to the next step, because it's one of those like, yeah, you know what, I'm taking that leap. I'm jumping the chasm and I'm going to go to that next step, and there's no going back once you make the step. So as you can see, the aircraft is painted. It is gloss coated. I have let it sit for a few days after the gloss coat to allow that gloss coat to harden and just ensure that there's no soft spots and there's no chance of me, you know, peeling or ripping any of the paint off. As well, as you just saw, I am pulling the masking out of the wheel wells. And that's mostly just because I like to see what it looks like with the masking off the wheel wells, but as well, it just gets in the way. I don't need it anymore. There's no more painting to be done. It's just weathering and overspray and stuff like that. And sorry, weathering and finish, and I'm not worried about overspray in those wheel wells. So you can start to get a good feel for what this is going to look like when it's all assembled. In terms of my next steps, I think the very next step, there's two things I'm going to do next. One of them is going to decal. I've got the decals here, Caracal's decals. I am most likely doing Gruesome Twosome. I was on the fence with a few things in terms of what I wanted to do. I like the Beast of the Far East. I think that's a really cool name, and I would have done that one, except when it comes to the crest on the vertical tail here. I prefer the crest on the other ones. And see, the crest I do like involves three potential aircraft: Lacken, Blacken, Lover Boy, and Gruesome Twosome. Out of those three that include the tail art I think Gruesome Twosome has the cooler name. So that's what I'm gonna go with. I do like Duckquake with the white bands, but I kind of like also this. This was the 339th fighter wing, 339th. Yeah, 339th fighter wing. They all had their names in the same kind of really interesting script on the side of the fuselage, and I really, really, really like that. And that's what I'm going to go with. The other one was the Dull Tool, but it has the same kind of boring crest as what the Beast of the Far East has. So I'm going to go with Gruesome Twosome. Cool name, cool art, and it should go together relatively well. So that's next. This is ready for decals. So that's the next step, is going to be the decals. I also have the radar pod has been painted black. I'm going to gloss coat this soon, just to make sure it has a bit of sealant on it. I should still do some cleanup with these panel lines. I have to coat this again. This has just been painted in flat black, which you can really see the difference between flat black and the dark gray that I used on the rest of it. But you can see it'll have to be super glued in place a little later, but I'm going to probably clean up the panel lines just a little bit, and then I can hit it with some dark gray and just vary the color a little bit and hide some of that. So that's got to be done. That's not a focus right now. I can do that later. The main things I want to work on, other than the decals, are going to be the exhausts. And I have them here. I haven't actually even taken them out yet. They are 3D printed, just like the radar pod was. The 3D printed. I just realized they wanted me to actually cut out. Oh, I made a huge mistake here. I should have opened this up before. They actually, looks like they wanted me to cut out this entire piece of plastic and drop this in. I'm gonna have to see if I can modify. I might be able to do it and just get the inner part. Well, you know what? I'm on camera. Let's do it right now. Because I don't need the entire outer frame. I just need that inner frame. Oh, you know what? It's cutting out pretty easily here. So let's see. Oh yeah, actually that cuts nice and easily, so I might not have a problem at all. Now there's a really good chance here I'm probably pushing. I'm playing the coin toss game that I completely ruin these, and then I don't have any. But yeah, that actually came apart really nice. I just clean this up a little bit. And if all goes the right way, this should just... Yeah, I just have to clean that up a little bit, and that should just drop. Yeah, I just have to trim these back a little bit, which isn't too hard. They just... I'm gonna be finding these bits all over my basement for the next who knows how many months, but yeah, a little bit of trimming, and those should just drop right in relatively nicely. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I am very okay with that. Okay, so that answers that question. I can trim these down and they fit in really, really nicely. So that is what I will go ahead and do. And then I can get these painted up. I don't want to lose this now. I need to get another little cup because I don't want to mix them up. Anyways, so that's one step is going to be cleaning up these exhausts and getting them set up to go together, mostly because I also have to paint them with Alclad, and that takes a bit of effort. I got to do gloss black, Alclad, weathering Alclad to get it all well. I also have the exhaust to do on the other two kits, the Mosquito and the E-model. So yeah, so I'm going to be focusing on those for the next little while, between decals and then picking away at the exhausts here and there as I work. To ensure that I get these things finished. And then once I get the decals on, I'll do some weathering, which is also why I need the exhaust finished, because I do want to paint some heavy exhaust staining down the sides of this. So decals, exhaust staining, and then I can hit it with a flat coat. And then once I hit it with a flat coat, I can pull the canopy masking off. I can start to get landing gear installed. I can get the drop tanks done. Once I get the landing gear installed and it's sitting on its own wheels, that's when I'm going to glue the radar pod on, which will ensure that I can put it down and not snap that radar off. And then I'll focus on things like propeller spinners and props and all the little things I still have to do. So we're getting there, but I've still got quite a bit of work. So let's keep going. I don't know what the next step is. You're either going to see me do more work with the exhausts, or I'm going to start decaling. So let's get at it, and we'll check in again in a little while. Here I go ahead and start installing the decals, and pretty standard with the way these decals go down. Caracal decals are beautiful to use, and above there I'll put a link to my tips and tricks video on decals, but it's just straight, no issues, nothing crazy. Decals go down nice and smooth.
Once the decals are done, I go ahead and use another coat of Future just to make sure those decals are set and locked in. That extra layer on top just make sure nothing scratches or causes those decals to pop or lift over time. And then it gets hit with a flat coat. I use just the regular Vallejo matte varnish, give that the flat coat, and then you'll see I start pulling all the maskings off the canopies and all the wheel wells and stuff get exposed, and I can move on to the next steps.
So I've run into a bit of a weird issue with this. If you noticed earlier, when I went to glue the wheels on, I ended up having to, well, first of all, the gear itself, the mounting kind of pin, the axle that goes into the wheel, was a little too large for the opening on the side of the wheel, or the wheel was too small for the opening. I don't know which one's which. Either way, I ended up having to drill out a little bit of the wheel itself to get that pin to fit. And I glued it together. The linear itself is very springy. I'm not sure how much of that you can see. Let's see if I can get an angle set up here. You can see there's a lot of play in that landing gear. It's not very strong. So it kind of has a weird sit when it does sit. But also the wheels have been kind of angling inwards as it sits. Just in the couple of, maybe a day or two it's been sitting here at the desk. And I don't know if that's the landing gear itself that's bending or if it's the pin holding it all together. So what I want to do here is just put a little bit of super glue along that joint. That way, if it is the wheel itself kind of on the axle that's starting to bend, and it's not quite on tight, this should lock that down and ensure that the wheels will stay pretty straight when it comes to the axle itself. And as well, I don't know, literally just noticed that the exhaust stack, which now I have managed to lose. The exhaust stack just fell. I had glued these on with regular old Tamiya glue, and I had a distinct feeling as I was gluing them that this 3D printed plastic would not be compatible with normal glue to some extent. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a little bit of super glue here to at least hold this one back. And the other ones seem to have been held down relatively okay with the Tamiya glue, but this one didn't quite want to stay in place, so a little touch of super glue. Little touch of super glue will help. I'm going to leave this upside down here on this stand, and that'll allow those wheels to solidify as close to vertical as they can, and we'll see what happens in the long term. Other than that, I'm going to go ahead and continue working on propeller tips. I'm going to paint the yellow. You would have seen me go ahead and do all the white there a second ago. So I'm just going to go ahead and get all of these painted over the white with the yellow and continue on with the build. So we'll jump to a time lapse, and oh, that's way too much. We'll get this done.
And here, now that I've got the canopies finished, you can see I start pulling the masking off of those, and then I do go ahead and get those glued onto the fuselage. And then I start gluing up the props and everything, getting those assembled, and then the final little things I need to do to get this kit finished.
So here we are finally at the end, and I have a completed F-82G. Now, for those who managed to get to this point of the video or jump to the end or whatnot and missed a lot of the background and details on this, this is the Modelcraft 1/48 scale F-82E that I've completed as a G, the Night Fighter version. I did that using a 3D printed radar pod and 3D printed exhaust stacks for the flame dampening exhaust. Those I bought online. Everything else in the kit, well, the plastic parts anyways, the airframe is right out of the kit. In the cockpit, I used, I believe it was, oh, you know what, I got it right here, Caracal, which is part of ResKit. I used their 3D decals inside the cockpit to get a detailed instrument panel and all that stuff inside, as well as seat belts. For instrument panels, they work great. For seat belts, they don't. They crack. I would recommend using photo etch for seat belts and the 3D decals for instrument panels and stuff like that. I also used the Squadron vacuum canopy on this in order to make them look scale thickness and be open, so I could present it with the canopy open. And I used Caracal decals. Otherwise, as I said, the airframe parts, the wings, the landing gear, the rest of the interior cockpit detail, all of that is right out of the kit. And if you haven't seen the F-82E time-lapse or the wrap-up for that, if anybody ever asks whether they should build one of these, my recommendation is no. It is a pain in the rear end to build. It's hard, the bad fit, very, very little positive location. Every piece on this kit just kind of floats. And there's a ton of work needed to get everything lined up properly and get it all mounted properly. It's not an easy kit to build. And like I said, if you have the skill to build this, why would you put the effort when you can do the Models Vid kit and get a better looking kit? If you don't have the skill to do this, why would you invest the money? You'd buy the Models Vid kit and you would make it look good. You know, the only saving grace for these kits is they're relatively inexpensive, but is it really worth the effort? I say no. I say spend the money on a Models Vid kit and finish it that way. Otherwise, very happy to have this. It's really cool to have the Night Fighter version of the F-82. The F-82's always had a soft spot for me, being a variant of the P-51 and the cool like double fuselage and the whole thing. It's just really cool and I really like it. One of the complaints I have, and I feel like it's going to come back to bite me in the long run, these landing gears are very weak. I don't know if you can see this. There's tons, like it's just soft plastic. I've already snapped the landing gear off once and one of my wheels has slowly started to cant outwards and look kind of weird. And I think that's just the plastic is soft. So I have a distinct feeling that at some point these landing gears are going to just snap, and I'll have to solve another problem. I might have to modify a P-51 gear from some kit. If I have a bunch of other P-51s back there that I plan to build. If I do one with wheels up, I'll have to sacrifice the landing gear and modify this again and put a different landing gear on that's a bit stronger, but that's a future me problem. So, you know, deal with that then. But anyways, other than that, it went together relatively okay. It wasn't, I mean, I shouldn't say that. It was a slog. It's a potato kit. It's finished. I'm glad it's finished. I love the look of it. I'm very excited to have this sitting on my shelf. Yeah, so let's take a quick look. I'll have a few pictures of the final kit here to wrap up this video. And then if you haven't seen it yet, keep an eye on my monthly What's on My Desk updates, and you'll see the next round of kits that I am building. And that's it. This is pretty much it for this F-82. It's going to go live on my shelf, and it will look great while it sits there. So thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you all next time.